Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Village of Gurnee Planning and Zoning Board for this Wednesday, January 3rd, 2018. Can we have roll call, please?
Bow.
Here.
Garrity.
Here.
McFarland.
Here.
Nordentoff.
Here.
Path.
Here.
Pasak.
Here.
And Zula.
Present. We have 100% attendance. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our meeting that was held back on December 6th. Does anybody have any questions, comments, changes to said minutes? If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
Motion to approve.
Go ahead.
Who was that, Mr. Pasak?
Yep.
And second by?
Second.
Second by Mr. McFarland. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a special use permit for 5455 Grand Avenue. Please.
Yep. Linda M. Summercorn, DDS-MS, is requesting a special use permit to allow wall signs for each of the 7 tenant spaces within the building located at 5455 Grand Avenue. Based on the interior layout of the ground floor of this building, 3 wall signs would be allowed by code. One tenant would be allowed 2 signs, while the other tenant would be allowed 1 sign. Based on the proposed sign type, individual letter signs that are non-illuminated, the total amount of signage allowed on the east side of the building would be limited to 80 square feet, and the total amount of signage allowed on the north side of the building would be limited to 70 square feet. Also, since some tenants are located in the basement portion of the building, some of the proposed signs would not be located on walls that are associated with the corresponding tenant space. The subject property is zoned O1 Restricted Office District. As with all special use permits, the Planning and Zoning Board will make a recommendation that will be forwarded to the Village Board for their determination. The petitioner is in attendance to present her plans and answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you. As this particular topic is a public hearing, I would request anybody from the petitioner or members of the general public who intend to either give testimony or ask questions, make comments, to please stand and be sworn in by the village attorney.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll turn the floor over to the petitioner. The portable microphone? She didn't. Okay.
So, my intent...
ma'am, I didn't notice that you stood up, so I'll swear you in real quick. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. So if you could just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Linda Summercorn.
Okay.
And this is a building complex. So one of the issues is that we were hoping that everybody would show up before the meeting so we could kind of get the condo association approval. Some emails were sent out, but we didn't get full response. So I believe there are 4 people here now, including myself. But basically what we're trying to do is get signage for my tenants, because the marquee that's out on Grand Avenue, I right now only have, it's kind of a first come, first serve, and there's not enough signs for the number of tenants. And right now I only have 1 sign for my tenants, and that's already been taken up. And these signs apparently were up, some of them similar signs by previous owner. So I don't know if they were grandfathered in or if they were just done without village approval. But what we're trying to do is make the building look, keep the colonial look with white lettering, and make it look pristine and have a standard type of lettering and size of lettering so that everything looks uniform and it's not just a hodgepodge of signs.
Okay.
Doesn't everybody have a copy?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Right. So you've seen the pictures, you kind of understand the layout. Okay.
The way the process works, staff gave the initial report, and then we typically ask the petitioner if there's anything they want to add, and then we'll ask some questions amongst ourselves. I'll open the floor to the public to see if anyone else has anything to say. Then we'll close the floor to the public, and then address everybody's questions at the
Okay.
end. Okay?
All right,
Thank you. So is anybody from members of the Planning and Zoning Board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Like, question, do we have a picture of what we see what is proposed to look like? Did the petitioner have what the building currently looks like so we can contrast at all? Because I'm seeing a mock-up, I think this is what this is, a mock-up, right?
This is the only one existing,
That photo there that you have,
just this one.
the photo that you have that shows the signs,
Okay.
So this is an actual photo that was taken in December, right?
yes, the photo that shows two elevations, the top that shows Wellness Clinic to the left and Cody Wright Tax and Accounting to the right, that is the existing building. The Wellness Clinic was photoshopped on, but the Cody Wright Tax and Accounting is existing. The bottom elevation, the 54, 55 is existing. I think maybe the C&E builders might be there, but all the rest is basically photoshopped. But that gives you an idea of the style of the letter, the location of the signs, with 2 on the east wall and 5 on the north wall. that clear?
When I looked at it this afternoon, the 5455 didn't look like it was pin letters. It looked like it was almost like an applique.
It looked like letters to me, but.
Yeah, but it looked like it was, it didn't look like it was pin. It looked like it was like flush. But I didn't get out of the car and look. I just looked
Well,
in the park.
they're flat letters, but they're individually mounted, I believe.
I don't
I mean,
think
she
they
can-
stick out a whole lot anyway.
Well, they look, to me, they look different than the ones
C&E.
to the right, yeah. Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Yes, Dave?
Is there an opportunity for there to be some type of a monument sign installed at this property, given the amount of frontage that it has, that would be allowed to be large enough to accommodate 7 spots of adequate size to identify all the tenants in the building?
You mean something like near the entryway, or?
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a question that we're going to have to get answered.
Well,
I can't hear any of the
Let's
questions.
discuss Dave's question first. I was along your lines too. I mean, because it seems like it's a lot of clutter in my mind on the building itself, and it's kind of a unique building in that it's not really visible from, huh?
Yeah, it's not visible.
It's not really visible, so I'm not sure why we're going to go through all the effort to do all these individual signs when, typically people that I think are going to visit these clients or tenants are going to be given a street address, and if there was like a directory type sign in front of the building, I think that would be a much better use of resources.
Well,
Yes.
I agree with that, and the only, my thought is that in the past, we've always kind of worked our way toward trying to create, building identity out in the street to make it easier for those traveling by at 45 plus miles an hour to identify the building location. If it's just going to be tenants on a building that's set that far back off the road, if you're thinking you're hoping you're going to catch somebody's attention, oh yeah, the sign's on the building, that's the one, oh, that's already passed me. That was the whole point behind where we were going, I think, over the years.
Right.
With our signage program. So I'm just wondering, given the frontage, is there the opportunity to build a monument sign large enough that could accommodate 7 tenants, be the right size? That's all
Yes.
that's
Okay.
all I bring out.
Okay.
Just put it out there.
I think it's a great point. Yes.
So my comment is, that would relate to that is, what I want to know is, if you recall, this looks like a 3-building complex that's probably all owned by the same party. I'd like to confirm that. People should be able to tell me. And so my question is, if you're going to put up a monument sign for all those tenants and it's a 3-building complex, my thought would be that the monument sign would simply have 3 panels with the building numbers on them, and then directories in the building inside could take care of it. But that would get you to the right building, and if you go inside, there's a directory there to find. I went inside one, there's a directory there. But you got to know what building you're going to. It's a pretty good-sized complex. Are they owned by different parties, or are they all the same person? Okay, so I thought maybe there was going to be some consistency, because if we approve this, it would make sense for the other 2 owners to come forward and say, oh, we want ours to look like that too. Just a comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. I drove by in front as well and took a look at the east and the north elevation. I did not take a look at the west, but on Google Maps, there's a street view showing off of Dilly's Road that there is a sign on the west end of the building that says C&E. I don't know if that's been taken down or if that's still current. But my question is there currently signage on the western face of the building, and will that signage remain up?
I do recall seeing signage on the western side when I drove back in there. But
So is
I
this,
don't remember what
is
it
this
says, though.
additional signage that we're approving that's already in?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is they're
Okay,
asking for...
this sign is to be taken down, but the problem is, I don't want these people coming out a million times to take a sign down and if they're going to be putting another sign back up. So my thoughts were, and I've already talked to them about removal, but we probably are only going to have 2 signs on the front of the building and 2 signs on the side of the building. Some tenants do not want signage. The thing is that I thought, since I'm here, I would request signage for each space and an additional space, because some people may want their sign on the front of the building, some people may want their sign on the side of the building, because you can see the sign on the side of the building from Grand Avenue. As you drive by, you can see that building between the other 2 buildings, and you can see this signage. It's big enough that you can see it. It's bigger than the signage there is bigger than the marquee. So the marquee is kind of hard to read, but the signage on the side of the building is easier to read. And now the other buildings all have similar signage. May not be exactly the same, but I want mine on the building to be uniform so that it looks neat. But I would say right now, the people that want signage are Zoomalaw and possibly Speedway. And I was going to let them choose whether they wanted the front of the building or the side of the building. And these were just potential spots for signage. I doubt that there would ever be 5 signs on the side of the building. Possibly 2. And we try and make them uniform and, balance the signage so that it looks nice from the road.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
So
Yes,
do you want answers to your questions about the ground signs?
yeah, let's start with that, because
Is there a monument sign?
Keep
There's,
just talking.
there's actually 2 monument signs currently. There's this one that has the tenant panels on it, and then there's one at the corner that David will show you that just has Spruce Park or whatever, Spruce Park.
so
And
one's
the ad-
identifying the development.
Yes.
Okay,
And
can
one
we go
has
back?
tenant panels.
Is the other monument sign geared toward all 3 buildings, or is it geared toward one?
All 3.
Okay.
But when this was developed, it was all like one owner. It's now split into condo buildings.
Okay.
So it gets a little messy in terms of the building pad is owned separately than the underlying property. Also, at the time that the signage went in for most of the buildings here, plus the ground signs, it was under the old sign code. The new sign code actually only allows one ground sign, so it already exceeds code in terms of the number of ground signs.
Okay.
You're maxed out at 4 tenant panels, and I think that you can, through the minor exception process, get an additional 8 tenant panel. Oh, in terms of number of tenant panels, you can get 8 additional tenant panels.
Additional?
on that little sign?
So 12 total?
You'd have to go through a minor sign exception under the existing code to increase the number of tenant panels from 4 to potentially up to 8. So you're doubling the number of tenants, not 12. And you would also have to stay within the size and the height unless you requested a minor amendment to exceed the height or the size, or a special use to exceed the height or size. I don't know what the height and size of the sign is. I don't know if it's in conformance with the current code because it was installed years ago under an old code.
Tracy, could they put a ground sign right in front of the building where they, in between those two windows?
A directory sign is allowed, but it would be, right up near the building.
So it'd be like near the front door type thing?
Correct.
Okay.
But how large could that be? Could they fit all their tenants on there at 4-inch size, 5-inch? Because that's the entry for all of the units, right? Whether they're in the basement or not.
The directory signs don't have a minimum text height requirement because you're not traveling at highway speeds. It's not directed towards those traveling on the roadway. It's once you get into the parking lot, it's supposed to direct them to tenants in the building. So it could be smaller text. She's looking at the maximum size.
Okay, they could have a directory sign, 15 square feet in size, may not exceed 6 feet in height. Directory signs intended to convey information to pedestrian and motorist within the boundaries of the development and may not be oriented to be visible from the street, from off-site.
Okay. That to me, that seems like a pretty good solution. Go
Doing
ahead.
a ground sign?
Yeah.
I get that,
Geez,
and I'm okay with that because we've done that in other complexes, but looking at that building right there, what she's requesting doesn't look any different than that or any worse than that. Personally, and the other building is just like that runs the other direction.
Can you show the other
If you
one?
look at them, they have multicolor signs and larger letters. So, I mean, these are, in some of the cases, there's the two tenants on top of each other, so it really looks like one sign. Personally, I'd have a problem with that myself because it's hard to distinguish between the two. It almost looks like one company, but on two lines. So
I don't know that I've ever seen I've never seen a plethora of multi-tenant office buildings that have this many wall signs on the outside of it. A more typical approach is to have a directory type sign either close to the road or right in front of the road, or there's directories inside the building. And most of the time when people are directed to a multi-tenant office building, they're directed to an address.
Right.
Right, which is...
Yeah, personally, I question whether all those other ones meet the spirit of the sign code.
Right, there you can see on that building.
Well, again, they were installed under an old sign code, just.
Exactly. And
They were.
And I don't think the current sign code would allow all that, would it, Trace?
Some of them, they might, if they are ground floor tenants, with probably most of those are. This building, that she's talking about is a little different because it has a walkout situation. It's built into a hill.
Right.
These are all single-story up front, so as long as you have direct access to your tenant from the outside or access it via a common corridor, vestibule, then you're able to get an exterior sign associated with your exterior wall. So some of these could be potentially legal. As Clara said in her notes, the existing building that Ms. Summercorn owns would be allowed 3 signs. One tenant would be allowed 2 signs, and another tenant would be allowed 1 sign. It's just the tenants that are in the ground floor, or I'm sorry, the basement, the walkout, that really don't have any, you have to be on the ground floor in order to get signs per the sign code. You can't even be on a second story if you're an office.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there, I was out there today, but I missed this. Is there a monument sign at the street entrance to indicate that's it? Is that out by this, is that by Washington, that sign you're showing me?
That's at the corner of Spruce and Grand.
Okay, so I'm going to see that when I drive by. I'd be interested in hearing from the folks out there.
Well,
Let me finish my thought, please.
Okay.
That if you have a sign that gives you the building numbers, then to me, when I went there today, I looked at that and I went inside the proper building and I could find everything I was looking for by doing that. I mean, the Hancock Center doesn't have a 40-foot sign out front showing you who the tenants are. You go to the Hancock Center and go inside.
But if you look at that monument sign that's for the development itself, you can't see it as you're going eastbound on Grand Avenue.
Okay.
Right.
You're
Well,
No,
the
you're
other
right.
sign has the
You're
address,
right. So that-
doesn't it?
It really doesn't.
But conceptually, I'd be a lot more comfortable with another monument sign or a bigger one than 40 signs on 3 buildings. That's where I'm coming from.
I think we're all
Throwing
kind
it
of
out there.
in the same camp so far. Any other questions from members of the zoning board before I open up the floor to the public?
I like the consistency.
Okay. At this time, I'll open up the floor to the public, and the way this particular process works, please direct your questions to us. After we've heard everybody's questions, I'll close the floor to the public, and then we'll address the issues the best we can.
So the question I have is, I've heard from Zuma Law, and they believe that they have approval, sign approval. So have they submitted approval for their sign on the building?
Okay, we'll like I said, we'll solicit all the questions, and then we'll deal with them after we've heard all the questions, okay? Thank you.
My name is Piero Orsi, and I'm the owner of Remax Showcase. We saw it there. I've been in that building now, I think, 23, 24 years. I was one of the first ones to move in. And the signs were legit, as was mentioned earlier, so I hope nothing changes. The reason for being here, I happen to be the president of the association, and I have been able to speak to the other 2 owners who are not here tonight, but they told me whatever we decide was done. As far as us, not your board. We probably would not be here had Ms. Summercorn advised us of what was going on, but thanks to your notices posted, that's how the association realized that there was activity going on within our association. Therefore, we told her that we needed to clear most of these issues with us before she even came here. So that being said, it was late to change tonight's meeting, so we all agreed that as far as the association, it was enough for us to satisfy our due process just by being here and talking to Ms. Summercombe before she came up to you, and we are in agreement, and we're now speaking against the motion as I would have had we not been able to talk to her and get the 6 owners together in a conversation. You know, like anything else, our association has a very clear due process through which we have to go through these items. So, that being said, whatever the board decides, we have no problems. I'd like to mention that the monument sign was discussed probably 4 or 5 months ago when Ms. Summercombe brought it up first. We investigated the matter, and as was mentioned earlier, it'd be very costly because it's hard to go back, including myself. I'm at the top of that, and I've been paying for that spot for 23 years, and I'm not very lenient to changing anything. After all, I've been there for 23 years. So expanding the sign, the monument sign, as was mentioned, it will be extremely expensive, providing that your board would allow us to do that. So that was put to rest. The monument signs by the building, I believe it was just stated 15 square feet, 60 inches in height. We would have no problems with that. And again, we are here speaking on the motion, not being against what the proceedings are here, but just as an association who was not contacted prior to this activity. Whatever signage you agree to grant her, we have no issues with it. As long as it kind of matches what we have, we would like to keep it consistent. And I very much welcome hearing Ms. Summercombe saying that finally all those 4 leaves and whatever 4 signs are going to be gone forever. That would be very nice because we don't like to look like a fire sale. So I do appreciate your time, and I don't have any more questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else care to make a question, ask a question or make a comment? Okay, I'm going to close the floor to the public. First, just to clarify for everybody, we don't have final say on this particular matter. We are a recommending body to the village board. So our job here is to kind of fully vet what we're hearing here and make a considered recommendation to the village board. So we're not going to make the final decision here on behalf of the village tonight. We're going to make a recommendation. But I do have a question for all you, for you all in that. Do you think a continuance is in order so that as an association you guys can get together, fully vet the process with your own internal rules, work with staff in the background to see if you really need a variance or not, and just take more time to just fully vet out so that we're comfortable that the condo association is happy what's going on here as a group?
That was my first suggestion.
Okay. Okay. I mean.
However, my understanding was from her telling me that there was a timing matter, and I suggested to withdraw from the.
Could you get back to the microphone, please? Thank you.
I suggested to remove the meeting from tonight's docket to maybe next month so that we would have a time to review all these matters. However, it was my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there were some things that had to be figured out, and so we decided last minute that from the association, as I stated earlier, we have no problem with your approval of whatever that's going to be granted tonight or later on, or however your procedures are. We will align with those procedures as long as it's matching what we have and it stays within what we already have had for so many years, and we'd like to keep that.
I mean, personally speaking, I would much rather see the group go back and kind of come up with a joint recommendation and joint proposal. Does anybody see anything differently from planning and zoning?
I concur, because so far what we've heard from the petitioner tonight is very conceptual based. She's,
right.
I don't know how many signs we're actually going to need, but I do want an extra one just in case somebody doesn't sign up now, might want one later. Okay. I think they should just figure out exactly what they want, come back and say, this is what we would like.
So, and technically speaking, I don't want to say the name wrong, Ms. Summercombe is the petitioner. I mean, would you like to go back and work with the condo association a little bit more in detail, and then we can continue this meeting and maintain all the notices intact, but just to give you all time to.
So yeah, I'm fine with that. One of the issues is that there was signage on some of the other buildings, and I really didn't think it was a big deal. It was just that I was trying to provide signage for each one of my tenants, and if we go, and this was the whole reason for this special use, is that lower level would be able to have a sign should they desire it. I'm not saying that I'm going to have 7 signs up. It's just that I was trying to allow spots for them to make a choice, because most people would probably want the north wall versus the current west wall or east wall has a spot for 2 signs, but most people would want that north wall so that they have exposure on Grand Avenue. That's my understanding of those that want signage. And right now there's only 3 people that want signage, but I have 2 tenants on the lower level that would like signage on the exterior of the building because we don't have room on the marquee. So my whole reason for the petition was just this special use of, or special permit for these signs.
Okay. I'm usually a pretty good read of the table here. Hang on just a second. My read of the table is that there's kind of great concern that some of this is conceptual and some of it is hypothetical. And I'm also kind of sensing that there's a little reluctance to allow a bunch of different signs in different places of the building. I think I'm hearing some direction that we'd prefer to see some sort of a directory solution as opposed to a bunch of signs on the wall. It is a unique property, and I'm just not sure that you're going to like where we go, given what's been presented so far. So I would encourage you to ask for a continuance, work with your condo association, work with staff a little bit more, and explore the directory solution as opposed to a multitude of wall signs.
So we're going for a continuance, that's my understanding, yeah.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Because I'm not suggesting that we're going to come to an easy solution here, because I think it's still too fluid of a situation, and we don't deal very well with stuff that's kind of not very concrete.
If you do continue, you have to have a
date
motion.
certain.
You have to have a motion,
Right.
and you have to have a date certain.
Right.
So what would be the meeting that you would continue to? You'd have to.
Yeah, how much time do you think you need to get together with the condo association, kind of vet out the process?
Claire, what are the dates that we have available?
The next date is the 17th, and then,
It's only 2 weeks.
yeah, and then the first one in February.
7th?
Let's see if I have the.
First
It's
one in
February
February is
7th.
February 7th. I mean,
February 7th.
would roughly 4 weeks be enough time to?
Yes,
I'm
February
asking the
7th.
petitioner. I mean, would roughly 4 weeks be enough time to try to get it all pulled together? Yes, they're always on Wednesday. They're either the first Wednesday or the third Wednesday of the month. So you'd like to request a continuance to February 7th? Okay, can we have a motion, please? Mr. Nordentoff?
Yes, I move that we forward, or that we continue this meeting to February 7th.
And it's a continuation of the public hearing.
Yes, right.
I'll second that.
A second by Mr. Pat. Can we have roll call, please?
Bow,
Yes.
Garrity,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Nordentoff,
Aye.
Path,
Aye.
Paysack,
Aye.
and Sula.
Aye, motion carries. So what this means is that the note, everything that we've done so far is preserved, and we just pick up the next meeting where we left off. And I would encourage, you and the condo association to get together, lean on staff as much as you can to, help you understand the rules a little bit better, and we'll take it from there on February 7th. Okay? Thank you very much.
So my remarks will have to be next time?
No, and anything that was said,
He wanted to
He
go.
didn't.
I was waiting in line.
it's already, I've
Well,
already,
you could, yeah.
I closed it for the public before.
He's got to come back.
Can you come back on the 7th?
Sure.
Okay.
Or you could wait till public comment tonight. If you
Yeah,
wanted
right,
to
if
say
you want to wait,
something.
because we have public comment at the end of the meeting, so I mean, if you want to wait till that. I'll wait. Okay, all right, thank you. Next items on the agenda are also public hearings for text amendments. Is there anybody from the general public that would intend to give testimony or ask questions about the text amendments? Okay, turn it over to staff.
All right, so the first one is on daycare centers. Staff is looking to remove the use standards in section 8.2.9.c of the Gurnee zoning ordinance requiring that daycare centers provide a pickup and drop-off area. Most daycare centers now mandate that parents escort their children into the facility and sign them in, which requires parents to park, not simply drive up and drop off or pick up their children. For For this reason, staff is proposing to eliminate 8.2.9.c, which states that a pickup drop-off area must be provided. When a daycare center is part of a multi-tenant retail center, the pickup drop-off area must not interfere with vehicle circulation in the parking lot, including blocking of the drive aisle. To offset the lack of an area for pickup drop-offs, staff is also proposing to amend the parking requirement for daycare centers. Staff surveyed the parking requirements of 8 other communities, the results of which are in the staff report. Staff is recommending changing parking requirements for daycare centers from 2 parking spaces every 1,000 square feet of floor area to 1 parking space for each employee on the largest shift, plus 1 parking space per each 10 children based on capacity.
Okay. Any,
I have a question.
yes, go ahead.
On the second page, it shows the 4 facilities that we have, and if I'm reading this correctly, they are all except one would be required to raise the number of parking spots that they have. Am I reading this right? That they're, like the first one, Kitty Academy, the proposed code would require 34, they have 32.
Correct.
So all of these would have to jack up the number of spots they have.
The first 2 would, but not,
just the first two.
just the first 2.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right, just the first 2.
They
They'd be
wouldn't have to
grandfathered
physically-
in.
Well, these are, it says these are under construction right now, so they're not really, so they'd have to revise their project plans, correct, Dave?
Since we've already issued permits on those, we would not go back and
Yeah.
Right.
So you would grandfather them based
Yeah,
on the
they
permit?
would be
Okay.
grandfathered.
Okay.
I just didn't want somebody out tearing up.
you can see that we're pretty close with what we're proposing, what
Yeah.
their industry standards are. So
Yeah, and I know these are pretty far along.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions about this particular topic?
Motion to approve.
Wait, I gotta go through the motions first. I'm gonna open the floor to the public. Is anybody, do you have anything to say on this? Okay. I'm gonna close the floor to the public. All right. Any additional discussion? If not a motion, it'd be in order.
Motion to approve the proposed changes
As submitted by staff?
as submitted by staff.
Okay, we have a motion. Second by Mr. Nordentoff. Could we have a roll call, please?
Bow.
Yes.
Garrity.
Aye.
McFarland.
Aye.
Nordentoff.
Aye.
Path.
Aye.
Paysack.
Aye.
And Sula.
Aye, motion carries. And that was a
Favorable recommendation.
favorable recommendation.
Favorable recommendation.
Great, okay. Next one is related to the C6 district parking.
Yes, for off-site parking and then for parking and building setbacks to private roadways. Staff is looking to correct a conflict in the parking code in the C6 district, specifically section 11.3.4.d.1 requires that in the C6 district, subject to zoning administrator approval, only 80% of the required parking needs be provided on the lot or building parcel on which any specific use is located, so long as the remainder of the required parking is located within 400 feet walking distance from such lot or building parcel, and the overall parking ratio is not reduced below that required. 400 feet walking distance corresponds to the distance that was allowed for off-site parking in the Gurnee Mills special use permit. However, section 11.1.2.a indicates that all required off-street parking areas for non-residential uses must be located on the same lot as the use served, with the exception of the C6 district, where required off-street parking areas for non-residential uses may be located within 600 feet of the use served, with the exception of valet parking. Staff is proposing to remedy these conflicting sections by changing section 11.1.2.a to say all required off-street parking areas for non-residential uses must be located on the same lot as the use served, with the exception of the C6 district, which is subject to 11.3.4.d.2. The ability for valet parking is not lost. since it is covered by 11.1.2.b, which states a non-residential use may provide valet service to a parking facility with no distance restriction. Staff is also proposing the creation of a 25-foot parking and building setback to the private roadways in the C6 district. When the zoning ordinance was adopted in 2015, the special use permit that regulated Gurnee Mills was repealed and the property was rezoned to C6. The development standards in the special use permit were incorporated into the C6 district. However, the parking and building setbacks internal to the site, adjacent to private roadways, were included in a separate peripheral parcel development standards document. It wasn't until after the adoption of the zoning ordinance that staff noticed that these standards weren't incorporated into the zoning ordinance update. The proposed amendment reestablishes the 25-foot parking and building setbacks in the Gurnee Mills special use permit by adding a number 5 to Article 5.3.2.c of the zoning ordinance that requires the following setbacks for all structures and parking areas: 25 feet from all internal private streets.
Okay. From my perspective, the 25-foot setback issue is kind of easy to understand. I got dizzy when I read this the first time. What's the practical implication of the first one?
At Gurnee Mills, you might have individual ownership parcels where, you have some overflow that's, because you have the large Gurnee Mills parking lot, you have overflow onto, basically it's almost like a shared parking because of the amount of parking spaces and the uses that kind of work together. So it allows for some flexibility to be able to count parking spaces that are 400 feet beyond that parcel's boundary.
So from a practical point of view, is this, I'm assuming this is more beneficial to the outlet properties as opposed to, it's to correct a potential deficiency for the outlet properties as opposed to the main.
Oh, it's both. It's both because you do have some ownership parcels interior to the site also.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm still a little confused as to the 25 feet. I'm like you, I'm still trying to get clarity here on what we're voting.
On the 25-foot, the setback one?
Yeah.
Well, that's just establishing setbacks that got overlooked. I mean, they're existing setbacks, but they got overlooked when the zoning ordinance was rewritten.
Oh, okay, all right, I get it.
The main ring road that goes all the way around Gurnee Mills is actually a private street, so it's not a public road. So because it's a private street, there are no setbacks associated with it. They were in a separate document that did not get incorporated into the new zoning ordinance. So we're reestablishing those setbacks from that private
So
street.
you're talking like Portillo's, for example,
Yes.
require a 25-foot.
The building and parking would have to be set back 25 feet from the ring road to the Portillo's structure, correct?
Crystal clear.
Okay. So it's just correcting a technical oversight. Okay. Any other questions on the first part of it? I'll open the floor to the public. I'm going to close the floor to the public.
Motion to approve as written?
I have a motion by Mr. Garrity. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's a motion to make a favorable recommendation to the village board.
Yes.
You okay with that change? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pasak. Okay. Roll call, please.
Bow.
Yes.
Garrity.
Aye.
McFarland.
Aye.
Nordentoff.
Aye.
Path.
Aye.
Pasak.
Aye.
And Sula.
Aye, motion carries. Next one is U-shaped driveways in the residential properties.
Correct. Staff is looking at creating provisions for U-shaped driveways in residential districts. With the adoption of the 2015 zoning ordinance, standards for residential driveways and parking pads were created. Prior to this, pavement in the front yard was not regulated. Some residences within the village have existing U-shaped driveways. Under the current ordinance, there are no provisions for U-shaped driveways, making those already existing within the village legal non-conforming. which has created an issue for residents looking to replace these driveways. Staff is proposing to add the following language to address U-shaped driveways. For driveways with 2 curb cuts, U-shaped driveways, the portion of the driveway providing the most direct access from the public right-of-way or private street or access drive to the garage must adhere to the standards for driveways leading to attached or detached garages. Any section of the U-shaped driveway other than this portion is limited to 12 feet in width. In addition, lots with U-shaped driveways are not allowed a parking pad in the front yard. The provision that prohibits parcels with U-shaped driveways the ability to obtain a parking pad in the front yard was incorporated because, 1, the amount of pavement in the front yard associated with a U-shaped driveway almost certainly already exceeds the pavement allowed in a front yard with a typical driveway that is non-U-shaped and a separate parking pad, and 2, that portion of the U-shaped driveway and access of that which provides the most direct access to the garage from the public right-of-way or private street or access drive can be used as a parking pad.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I just wanted to get some clarity on when we say parking pad, is that just the U-shaped driveway that doesn't have access to a garage? Perfect. Got it. That's what I was...
So parking pads are allowed in the front yard if they are limited to 20 feet in length and 10 feet in width. So that second section that says that a parking pad is not allowed with U-shaped driveways, that's limited because instead of needing that 10 by 20 pad, you could just use the U-shaped portion of the driveway. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. From a practical point of view, it'd have to be a pretty large lot for this to come into play, right?
There are a few instances that have actually come up with permits where people have existing U-shaped driveways that they're looking to replace.
Okay. But a typical R3, R2 probably isn't big enough, right?
There are a handful of them that are kind of grandfathered in.
Okay.
For any new applications, you require 130 feet of public right-of-way frontage before we would allow a second curb cut.
Okay.
But there are a handful of them throughout town that don't meet that.
Okay. And the issue is because if they're legal non-conforming, they're okay as long as they don't do anything to...
As long as they don't repave them.
But if they're doing their neighborhood responsibility and keep on their property, we wouldn't let them keep it.
Right.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open the floor to the public.
One more question, sir.
I'll close the floor to the public.
Sure.
Okay, closing the floor to the public. Additional questions?
Well, so what happens for those handful of homes when they go to repave?
Without this ordinance being amended, technically they would have to rip out half of the U-shaped driveway and bring it back into conformance. However, some of the homes, the garage configurations don't really lend themselves to a typical driveway. So it creates kind of a difficulty in, the way they were master planned with the driveway, the garage access, and everything put together. It creates a difficult access entry into the garage.
And so now with this ordinance,
With this
they're gonna be
ordinance, that
conforming.
eases that difficulty.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And they still have the limitation of width, so they wouldn't be able to expand beyond, so there's still some there's regulations.
Limitations.
still,
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, recommending motion.
Motion to submit a favorable approval, favorable motion.
Favorable recommendation
Am I
to the
getting my words
board.
mixed up? Favorable motion to the board.
Second.
As written.
Okay, second by Mr. Garrity. Roll call, please.
Bow.
Yes.
Garrity.
Aye.
McFarland.
Aye.
Nordentoff.
Aye.
Path.
Aye.
Pasak.
Aye.
And Sula.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, definition of family and single housekeeping unit.
Yes, staff is proposing to create a definition for family because the zoning ordinance doesn't currently provide one. Specifically at issue is the number of unrelated individuals that can live together and be considered a family. The previous ordinance established that a maximum of 3 unrelated individuals constituted a family. However, a court case in Waukegan struck down the legality of their definition of family and resulted in the village's planning consultant hired to assist with the zoning ordinance update to recommend that the new zoning ordinance not contain a definition of family and to instead rely on the building code, which limits occupancy based upon square footage of the structure. However, staff has had several inquiries for what appear to be unlicensed community residences that have caused concern. Also, the building code calculations for occupancy are somewhat complicated based on square footage of bedrooms, living rooms, and dining rooms. For that reason, staff is looking to create a definition of family that includes unrelated individuals and which will hopefully not result in any legal challenge. Staff surveyed 20 communities and the majority had 3 or 4 as the maximum number of unrelated individuals constituting a family. The proposed definition for family is 1 or more persons related by blood, marriage, legal adoption, or guardianship, or not more than 4 persons not so related living together on the premises as a single housekeeping unit. Family does not include and shall not be interpreted to include the following facilities addressed in this and other sections of this regulation: residential care facilities, community residences, large or small, fraternities, sororities, or dormitories. Staff chose to set the number of unrelated individuals at a maximum of 4 because it appeared that prior to the 2015 update, 3 unrelated individuals might put the ordinance at risk of legal challenge. A limit of 5 was also considered but was ultimately not chosen because more communities established the limit at 4 and not 5. Since the definition of family that staff is proposing includes the phrase single housekeeping unit, staff is also proposing the following to define this term: any household whose members are an interactive group of persons jointly occupying a dwelling unit, including joint access to and use of all common areas, including living, kitchen, and eating areas within the dwelling unit, and sharing household activities and responsibilities such as meals, chores, expenses, and maintenance, and whose makeup is determined by the members of the unit rather than by the landlord, property manager, or other third party.
Okay. I'm going to ask Brian Winter if he wants to weigh in additional perspective.
No, I mean, basically, staff has looked at what other communities are doing, and, no, these are not, we did not wordsmith these.
Okay.
We adopted other existing language for that, and I think generally we want to follow form. We don't want to be an outlier and develop our own language on this, and I think the description is an accurate one in terms of the overview of where things stand right now.
Okay. Just I have one other question, because sometimes I get lost in the double negatives. So would this prohibit group homes or?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay, Josh?
Well, when is family used in the ordinance? I mean, I know we're defining what a family is here. How is it used throughout the zoning ordinance? Can we have some example?
Our base residential district is a single-family zoning district, single-family residential zoning district. So it's one house, one family unit in each home.
Okay, that's the main purpose of the definition of family. Got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Formality, I'm going to open the floor to the public, close the floor to the public. Any additional discussion? Yes, Josh?
I was going to motion.
So, just to be clear, what we're voting for is the definitions of family, which would be no more than 4 persons not related, and then the definition of the single housekeeping unit, correct? That's what we're voting on?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. And we're making a recommendation to the village board. Okay. Josh?
Motion to submit to the board a favorable recommendation for the text amendments as submitted by staff for the definition of family and single housekeeping unit.
Okay. Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Bow.
Yes.
Garrity.
Aye.
McFarland.
Aye.
Turntop.
Aye.
Path.
Aye.
Paysack.
Aye.
And Sula.
Aye, motion carries. Next meeting on the calendar is scheduled for January 17th. Will we be having one?
As of right now, we don't have any public hearings scheduled, but we may have some.
We may have some administrative stuff, okay. Okay, open the floor to the public. Is there anything that you'd care to say? No? Okay. Close the floor to the public. Motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Mr. Norntoff, second by Mr. Garrity. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Stay warm, everybody.
Yeah.